Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of the WholeHearted Leadership Podcast. And today I have with me Rocky Esguerra. Rocky and I met on LinkedIn. I've been following her posts, and I'm very intrigued by her long years of corporate experiences with some of the top Fortune 500 companies in the world. And today I'm very excited to be interviewing Rocky. So let me first introduce Rocky. Rocky is a former CHRO and senior HR executive who had a very colorful career at three global companies, P&G, Pfizer, and Heineken. She has worked in 5 countries, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Taiwan, and Singapore, where she is currently based. She is using this rich experience as an executive coach and a HR consultant. Hi, Rocky. Welcome to the WholeHearted Leadership Podcast.
Hi, Coen. Morning. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Very excited to be talking to you today. So, Rocky, usually we start our podcast with asking our guests some questions. So the first question, we'll get straight to the point.
Okay.
What does being a wholehearted leader mean to you?
For me, wholehearted leadership means that you're able to bring your best self to work or in the personal arena. So you're not afraid to show your real self unapologetically. And you can do that, be vulnerable without fear of rejection or criticism or reprisal. And since you said leadership, right? So the other aspect of that is, as a leader, you need to create that same opportunity for other people. So it's not only for yourself, but for the people around you.
So you want to create a space where people can be themselves unapologetically.
Yeah.
That sounds really great, right? That sounds great, right? The thing is, sometimes people will say that, hey, I don't feel safe. I don't feel that I can be myself unapologetically. So what would you say to that?
I think that's true. There are certain barriers. And what I would say is that there's an inner aspect, which is maybe you don't understand yourself, you're not self-aware, or maybe your values are not clear. So you're not able to show up wholeheartedly because you're swayed by other people, or you're trying to meet expectations of other people, so you don't show your best self in those situations. And then the other aspect is external. So maybe you want to lead wholeheartedly, but then you find yourself in an environment where it's not supported, or maybe you feel criticized, or you feel judged. So it affects the way you show up to other people and at work.
Great. Let me get straight to this, right? Then, if people find themselves in situations like that, then what are some of the solutions, or what are some of the strategies that they can pursue so that they can show up more authentically as themselves?
Yeah. So I think the very first thing is to understand what you really value. And I find it a bit surprising that there's a lot of people who actually don't know their values. So I've encountered that at work or in my coaching practice. And I think it's very important, because if you don't know what you stand for, then it's very hard to show up as your best self, because it's always going to be dictated by other people, by what people say, what society expects from you. So that's why some people feel unmoored. They feel lost or confused. So I think it starts with that, like clarifying what you stand for, and then living your life consistent with that. Because if you're living your life consistent with your values, then you're more authentic. You're always at peace with your decisions.
Interesting. Having lived in so many different cultures and countries, right? Like, would you say that this is something that is there a difference in cultures? For example, we're talking about knowing your own values and being able to express and live out your values at work and also in your own life.
Yeah.
Right. Is it cultural? Like perhaps here in Asia we are raised to not rock the boat and just go with the flow, go with the program. And a lot of us internalize messages like that.
Yeah.
That, to not rock the boat, to
Yeah.
go with the flow is the way to survive. As we were kids, right? As we
Yeah.
were children, we want to fit in, we want to get the love of our parents.
Yeah.
And so we sort of internalize those messages from a very young age. And then when we go out into the world, then we find it a big challenge.
Yeah.
Would you say, is there a cultural element to this? And do you see this in different cultures?
Yeah, I think it's an overlay of different things. The first one is the cultural piece. So you do see countries that are collectivist versus individualist, right? So most of the Asian countries, for example, are collectivist. We do what's good for the community versus some countries, let's say Western cultures, it's more individualist. Like, what is my right as an individual? And then I behave according to that. You don't care too much about the good of the group. So that's one overlay, the culture of the country. And then another thing is upbringing. Like, how were you raised? What are the values or the beliefs that your parents gave you when you were young? And then, of course, when you're a child, of course, you follow that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one would be when you enter a company, because each company is very different. They all have different values. So that's the third overlay. And then the fourth one would be your own beliefs. Because after you grow up, you're an adult, then you start forming your own values and beliefs. And then when you're in the corporate world, you have to understand these 4 different layers. And then you need to think about, okay, you have all of these things. What does it take to really succeed in this workplace? And do I have to make some adjustments so that I can make it here? So, for example, in the corporate world, I would see some people who they'll say that, I value integrity, value showing up honestly. But then they try to go after a promotion in a very cutthroat way. So, it's not done cleanly, or they try to pull some tricks. And then they do get the promotion. But then later on, as they keep on doing that, they suddenly realized, what happened to me? I'm not the honest person I said I was. I got the promotion, but then I feel uncomfortable. This is not who I want to be. And when they realize that, then there's an aha moment. And then it kind of like resets, and they start reflecting that maybe this is not what I really wanted, because it comes with a price. It's not living what's really important to me, which is ethically showing up and being honest.
So how much of this is a function of the person being against their own values, or is it a function of maybe fear? Right? Sometimes there's a lot of fear in the workplace. So it's like, if other people are doing it, then I should do it too. Because if other people are doing it and I don't do it, and I show up authentically to my values of, being just, ethical, morally right, but I might miss out on the promotion because other people are doing it. So, so do you think a lot of it is fear driven, or is it a matter of the person just really deviating from their own values?
I think sometimes it's fear. And it's like this herd mentality thing, right? Because you see other people are doing it. Oh, okay, these are the rules of the game. Then I'm going to do that too. But it also shows some people are not strong because they get swayed, right? They don't. They're not really steadfast in their belief, so they get swayed. But I also see some people where they'll say, yes, I understand this is the game, but I don't want to play this game. Because I know if I play this game, I'm compromising who I really am. And sometimes they leave the company because they say, I don't want any of this. I'm going to another place where I can be who I really am. And it's okay.
Wow. So they are foregoing the promotion?
Yeah.
They are leaving that company, and they're going someplace else.
Yeah.
So would you say that there's like a step back in terms of their progression? And if they make that trade-off, right? Like, how can they make that trade-off with the knowledge that it's going to come back and pay off later.
I think it goes back to how they define success, because you can look at it as a step back. I missed out on that promotion because I don't want to play the game. And then they go to another place where they can thrive. And then they succeed there, they get promoted. And in their eyes, they're even more successful because they got to where they wanted without compromising who they are. So it really depends on your definition of success.
Very good. Very, very clear. Very, very clear. So you talk a lot about values, right? So can you elaborate a little bit about how knowing your values have helped you to navigate your own career?
Okay, so I've always had a strong understanding of my values, even as a teenager. And it was even more solidified when I grew up in P&G, because it's a very values-driven company. It's almost like a cult. You go there, right? You're a fresh graduate. You don't know anything. And you are shaped by such a strong culture. Wow. You go there as a batch. You understand the company's values, the history of the company. You go through some tests to check your understanding. And then you can see that these values are being used in the day-to-day decisions.
What are times when you need to forego maybe a promotion or a work opportunity because of your values?
Yeah.
Can you share more?
Yeah. So, for example, we had moved several times already, and then my boss said that they wanted to move me again to another opportunity in another country. And then my husband and I, we evaluated that and said that, moving the kids again after a short while is not good for them. And then also, it's the country too. The quality of life that we would be having there, especially for the kids. So I told my boss, I really appreciate that you're thinking about my career, but I would like to say no to this assignment. And I know that if I don't take it, it's going to slow down my promotion. But I'm fine with that because family comes first before career. And I did see that I have some peers, they progressed faster than I did. But I don't have any misgivings about that because I was just making the decision based on the values that I had.
Wow. So what I'm hearing between the lines is that you live with no regrets and you have no misgivings about that. You live well with that decision you made because you made that decision based on your values.
Yeah. You're just holding yourself accountable to what you said you valued, and you can live with a decision. At least you know why you're saying yes to this opportunity, why you're saying no to this opportunity, and you can live with the implications of that because you can go back to, I said no to that because my family is more important than that opportunity.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. I like that. I like that. So what I'm hearing from you is that being clear of your values allows you to make decisions with clarity and also be able to move and live with those decisions without having that regret holding you back.
Yeah.
I mean, just a bit of a digression here. You mentioned that you moved 4 times.
Yeah, 4 times in 11 years.
11 years.
And I gave birth to a baby during that time too.
So it must have been so challenging, right? I mean, when you're in your 20s, 30s?
30s.
Yeah, it must have been
20s,
such.
Yeah, 20s, 30s, yes.
There must have been so much transitions and all that,
Yeah.
right? So how did you manage these transitions? How did you adjust and adapt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a lot of young women ask me, how are you able to do everything? Like you have a successful executive career, then you're raising kids at the same time, you work full time. I never took a sabbatical, by the way. I just took like a few weeks off for changing jobs. Of course, I took maternity leave. But the key thing for me is marrying the right guy. It's a very important life decision because it can either hold you back or propel you through amazing heights. So I think it's very important to choose the right partner and to have these discussions before you become serious, right? Like, what is your vision of married life? What do you think about kids? What do you think about career? And for us, these were very real concerns because we both worked in P&G. So I met my husband 2 weeks after I joined the company during the orientation.
Mm-hmm.
So I met him, and then we dated, got married. So now we're a dual career P&G couple. And yeah, we have these discussions about, okay, what if I get an opportunity or you get an opportunity? Who's leading? And what happened to us is that because I asked for an expat assignment, I asked my boss. It took 3 years to make it happen, by the way, because that time it wasn't very common. So eventually, I was the lead career, and then my husband followed me throughout those moves. And then the interesting thing is that it worked out really well for us because I was head of HR, he was head of supply chain. We sat in the same leadership team in the country. And then we reported to the same GM.
Wow.
And while doing that, we have to run the household, right? Because the kids were so small. He was very nice because he said, your lead career, I'm going to ask for a leave first. I'm not going to start the same time. I'm going to ask for a 3-month leave to set up the household, like to get the house help, choose the house. There were periods of time when we did not have house help, so he was like doing chores, ironing, and then he said, you'd better not wear too many clothes that need ironing because it's really difficult. So we were like sharing chores, clear responsibilities in terms of who's going to handle what. So that's one, right? Because that's a big help.
Wow. Must be. You're both a power couple. And you really live with a lot of clarity, and I think that's very, very helpful, right, in terms of optimizing both your career as well as your family life.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And also, you moved from Philippines and then you moved to Indonesia.
Yeah, that was my first assignment.
And how long did you spend in Indonesia?
6 years.
6 years in Indonesia.
Yeah, it was very special in a way because I moved there, and then it was my first country HR head role. And then 2 years into the job, there was the riots. So, I had to also take care of employees during that time. And I had to make decisions around safety of employees, safety of the company assets. So we formed this team to think about all those contingencies. Like, what would we do if this thing happened and then all the banks closed down? How would we pay employees because they would need money? How would we handle expat evacuation? What if people got stuck in the office? We need to have food there, sleeping bags in case they got stuck there, everything. But or how would we send home employees? Let's say there's a riot in the streets. Do we send them all home at the same time? All these decisions that we had to make.
So you were fairly young in your HR career, but your first overseas assignment.
Yeah.
It's also your first head of country HR position.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
It must have been such a baptism of fire, right?
Yeah.
No pun intended, but for you to be faced with such a crisis situation.
Yeah.
What would you say would be your top takeaways that emerged from this crisis?
Yeah, so my learning then is that you can prepare all you want because our plan was really good. We had security consultants, we benchmarked with other companies. We thought of everything. But when the actual thing happened, some parts of the plan didn't work. So it's good to plan, but life happens. Sometimes you need to adjust the plan and you need to be quick. Especially in a crisis situation like that, you need to think very quickly. And then also, it was the burden, right? The burden of making a decision that was life and death. Because actually, people could die, right?
How did you grow personally from it? Did you emerge with sense of...
Yeah. Well, it was a very big challenge. Actually, I lost 10 pounds in 1 week.
Oh,
Because I was so stressed, with the weight of this decision. And after that, so we kept everyone safe. No one was harmed. The
bravo.
assets were protected. We all evacuated. Eventually, we came back. After that, the reflection that I had is that the company can throw anything at me after this, and I can do it because I could do it. And of course, I didn't do it alone. There were other people who helped me. But it was such a big responsibility at such a young age. And I was a mom of a 5-year-old. So I also had, I was also thinking about my child, right? And that's the learning. I said, after this, I can handle anything. And it made me a stronger person.
Wow.
So later on, I had other challenges when I moved on to new assignments. And then I would always remember, but hey, remember, you did that in Jakarta and you survived. You could do that. You can do this.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So after Jakarta, you moved to Bangkok.
Thailand, yes, Bangkok.
And how was that transition like from Jakarta to Bangkok? Was it easy or?
Very easy. So for my husband and me, it was a vertical startup. We were both working. Household was settled. The nannies were taking care of the 2 kids because I gave birth in Jakarta. So I had a 2.5-year-old baby when we moved. And and then my daughter was 8. So 8 and 2. So that was easy. I was enjoying it. And then 1 year into the assignment, a senior HR leader called me up and then said, "Hey, we want to move you."
just as you're settled, right?
I was
Yeah.
actually in the beach that time. I remember. I think I was in Phuket with my family. And then he said, "Hey, we're thinking we want to move you." I said, "What? I've only been here a year. I'm trying to, I'm starting to enjoy my assignment. You want to move me again? Why?" And then they said, "No, we need you because, we have this crisis in Taiwan." So he said, "It's going to be a long assignment, probably for 4 years because you have to fix so many things, but I need you there." Then I started to think about, okay, wait, this is disrupting my family life, right?
Yeah.
Kids were 2 and 8. So I said, I'm not so sure because, what's important to me is education system. And then this boss of mine, he's actually my mentor, he's my favorite boss. He said, just come, just visit, no obligation, visit the school. And then I looked at the school, it seemed great. And then we said, okay, let's do this. So we moved there, and then my husband and I did the proper look-see. So we looked, okay, this seems fine. School is good. And it's in another area of Asia Pacific. It was a different business unit. It's good. But it turned out to be one of the also memorable assignments I ever had. So I was there for 4 years. And then after that, I worked very well with this boss. We complemented each other's strengths. And then after that, he went on to a regional role and he took me there. So that was my first regional role. I came to Singapore.
And you have stayed since.
Yeah. I've been here since.
Wow. So let's just talk a little bit about your career progression, right? It's
Yeah.
like your boss called you and say, hey, it's like I need you for this particular crisis situation,
Yeah.
right? What did you think your boss saw in you that made him think that you're the best person for this role?
He saw my track record of really fixing systems, fixing culture, because I did that in the previous assignments. And also learning, because I love to learn new things. And he saw that in me. I had different assignments, different kinds of challenges, but I had high learning agility.
So you're able to adapt and you're able
Yeah.
to learn quickly and implement things.
Yeah. And fix the fundamentals. I think that was what was needed there. Fix the fundamentals and make sure that they were strong so that we could turn around this company.
were you always such a confident person, or did you just sort of like stumble upon these skills? Because we're talking about career progression, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we need to think about what kind of basket of skills we need to develop. And obviously, we talk beyond just skills like HR, right? So obviously in HR is technical skills like human resource, comment bands, and knowledge about HR, right? But I think there's a lot more beyond just that. A lot of these leadership skills, transferable skills, things like crisis management, things like being able to have difficult conversations. So I think these are some of the skills that you have. Would you say that these are innate, like you were born with it, or did you develop this along the way?
I think it's combination. Like for example, that crisis management thing, I knew nothing about that. But you know, I learned. I asked different people. I got resources, and then we developed it from there. And then some part of it is innate as well. I've always loved learning, trying to do new things. So that helps a lot, right?
But you also have tremendously high confidence in yourself that really possibly comes from your own clarity about your values.
No, actually, I mean, you know, the self-doubt was there for even, when I was younger. Self-doubt, you know, imposter syndrome, you know, my inner critic was so loud. So I had these doubts, like, am I good enough? But, you know, you slowly prove to yourself through achieving things that, okay, I can learn this, I can succeed here, and then you start building on those achievements. But was I always like this? No, of course not.
It's refreshing to hear that you also have that, you know, self-doubt and everything like that. But the self-doubt is a kind of like a healthy self-doubt. Yeah, it's kind of like keeping you on the edge of learning. Yeah, it's not the kind of like full confidence that gives you a Dunning-Kruger effect that makes you complacent and overly confident. But there's this like a healthy zone of self-doubt that makes you realize that you don't know everything, and therefore you are curious.
Try to learn, the curiosity, right?
And you're willing to ask for help as well. The humility.
Humility to ask help. Yeah, and it's just also taming that inner critic. I think many of us have it.
Tell me more. How did you tame that?
Yeah, I realized that, you know, there's this voice, right, that keeps asking me or telling you that maybe you're not good enough, or maybe this is not for you, you're not ready. But if you dwell too long on that, you're going to be paralyzed. So sometimes you just need to try, right? And then when you fail, it's better to fail fast. And then learn, right? Okay, try again. If it doesn't work this time, okay, just try, right? And then sometimes we think about, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. People are looking at you. They're going to remember you failed. But this is spotlight effect, right?
Tell me more.
Spotlight effect is you think other people have you in their minds all the time. They're like noticing everything you're doing. But actually, they're not. They're too busy with their own lives, right? They actually don't. I mean, you're not that important that they're thinking about you all the time.
So basically, you are actually in your own spotlight, and that critic is very harsh, and so you need to kind of like silence that inner critic.
Yeah, silence that critic, and then think about, okay, what can I do instead? Instead of expending this energy, worrying or beating yourself up or doubting yourself, maybe I can channel this energy into something else, something more productive. Why don't I learn this thing? Why don't I look at other people who have done it and see how did they do it? Or why don't I ask them? So it's a better use of the energy versus worrying, right? Ruminating or getting anxious.
Love it. So you talk about ruminating. I think that's a nice segue for us into the topic of reflection. I think in our previous conversation, we talk about how you really set aside time for reflection, and reflection is so important to you.
It's very nerdy.
I don't think it's nerdy, you know. I think personally, right, I think reflection is a super skill.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about superfood, right? Certain food like chia seeds are superfood, right?
Yeah.
There are certain skills that I also look at as super skills these skills that once you develop them, it actually increase the effects of all the
Yeah.
other skills that you have.
It
And I think
amplifies.
it amplifies. And I think reflection is a very powerful tool, because I always think of it as, let's say, two people
Mm-hmm.
attending a seminar, or two people sitting in a class learning a really useful technique or a useful skill. But the two person can walk out of that class, and 5 years later their career or
Very
their
different.
lives would have very different trajectory. Some people personally have that ability to super learn. Some people will just go, okay, I just learned something useful. It was nice. I'll use it when I need it. So I
Then
think
they
the key
forget.
thing is reflection.
Mm-hmm.
When you actually go back and reflect on what you've just learned, what you've just seen, heard, and
Yeah.
remembered, I think it gives you a sense of insights. It gives you a sense of increased confidence, increased
Yeah.
self-efficacy, increased sense of, identity, that, maybe if I use these skills, I will be able to evolve my identity. And
Yeah.
that, I think, is reflection. I think reflection helps people to make the most of the experiences that they have. People who don't reflect make the same mistake over and over and over
Mhm.
again,
Yeah,
and they never learn.
Yeah, because they don't internalize, they don't connect the dots,
Yes.
and then they don't think about how can this actually help me or
Yes.
change my life, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's why it just flies over their head.
Exactly. So I think I'm suddenly very passionate about this, because I personally am a big believer of reflection as well.
Okay.
So maybe Rocky, talk us through your reflection techniques or your reflection routine.
Okay. Yeah, so I have a daily routine. So I journal at the end of the day. And actually I integrate my journaling with my goal setting. So there are certain things that I want to do each day. So at the end of the day, I check whether I was able to do that. And then also I integrate it with my gratitude practice. So I always try to find 3 good things about the day. So sometimes it can be a very mundane day. Nothing exciting, very boring, but I'll still find something good, 3 good things in that day. And I think if you think this way, it trains you to be more appreciative, to find the good in little things. It doesn't have to be something grand and fantastic. So that's what I do. That's my daily practice. But actually, the daily practice is really supporting a yearly practice. So that's why I said it's very nerdy.
Tell me more. Yeah.
Around 5 years ago, I found out about this tool, and I really love the tool. It's called Year Compass. So it's a reflection tool that was developed by a Hungarian team. So Year Compass is a tool that helps you evaluate the past year. So like, what did you achieve? Who are the people you spent time with? What were your achievements at work or in personal life? Fitness, health, all aspects of health. What do you need to let go? Who do you need to forgive? What do you need closure on?
So powerful.
That's the first part. And then after you do that, the second part is planning the year. So it's looking at, okay, this year is coming up. What do you want to achieve in all those areas? What are places you want to see? What are hobbies you want to pursue? So you are looking back and looking forward. So I've used this tool 5 years already. So that's the tool itself. But what I did to make it more powerful is a review process. So this is the nerdy part. So what I do is every December, I go to a fancy restaurant with a view. And then actually I've convinced my husband to do this too. So we both go to this restaurant, and then we eat. And then during dessert time, we start doing the review part. The part 1, and then after that we do the part 2. So it's only a piece of paper at that point in time, but what makes it powerful is if you can block off time in the next year to review it. So every quarter, actually, I have a date with myself. It's just me, and I try to do something enjoyable. Like last Friday of the year, I will go to, let's say, National Gallery because I like art. I'll go through the museum, and then eat lunch at a nice place, and then I do the review. I check, what has been done, why hasn't this been done? What do I need to adjust? So I do that. And then I also do like a semi-annual or an annual trip. I go to another place just alone for like 3 or 4 days. So, it's a lot of silence, right? It's a lot of introspection and going inward to really evaluate where is your life going. Because if we don't do that, there's too much busyness and distraction, right? You get distracted by so many things, the work that you're doing, and then if you're not careful, you're not living intentionally. So these are my practices to force me to live intentionally and to hold myself accountable to what I said I wanted to do with my life this year.
That's so powerful. That's so powerful. I think a lot of people can tend to be very, very caught up with, social media and what have you. And I think what's the most dangerous thing, the most insidiously dangerous thing, is that you can be caught up with scrolling, TikTok, Instagram.
Doom scrolling.
And I think the scrolling, the most insidious part is we trick ourselves to thinking that we are learning something. So, I mean, there's no shortage of self-help videos, self-help tools, self-help tips. And I feel that people, when they're just like spending hours on that, and they trick themselves into thinking, oh, I'm learning something useful, I'm learning something, but
they're not applying.
That to me, right, is kind of like a numbing. It's got a numbing effect. And what happens is when you actually sit down and learn from somebody who's like on top of their game, you again think that you're learning, but you're just numbing out. You're just kind of like, so we lose that sense of discernment.
Yeah.
It's just a bit like, if you like to eat good food, like a very, very well grown vegetable, fresh vegetables, fresh catch from the sea, but all of a sudden you start to, get a little lazy, you get a little, out of convenience, you start to eat fast food, for example. So you eat some easy microwavable food, and then after a while, your palate becomes used to numbing yourself with lower quality food.
Yeah.
And then when you actually get to eat really good food, your palate becomes numb to it. You cannot appreciate good things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why you need to switch, right? You need to shake the system because it's homeostasis, right? It's the science. It's like after a while, whatever it is that you're experiencing, it comes as normal, regular, and then you don't notice the difference anymore.
So what you do is you actually shock the system.
Yeah, sometimes you shock the system. It's like a working out, right? Sometimes you say, "Oh, I'm gonna try this workout. It's really hard."
Yeah.
And then after a while, your body gets used to it. That's why you need to shift to different kinds of working out so that you can stretch your body, you can stretch your mind. It's the same thing, right? Because it's homeostasis.
That's so good. That's so good. So to counter homeostasis, you shock the system. So what are some of the things you have done to shock the system?
Yeah, so for example, those quarterly things are a shock to the system, right? Because our everyday living is we were bombarded by stimuli, right? Digital stuff, all this scrolling.
Yes.
But then if you do these reflection things, it's quieting down, right? You're alone. You don't talk to people.
You're not consuming information.
Yeah, and then you're reflecting on what did I do last quarter? And why didn't I do this thing? Maybe I could have done this better. What am I going to do next time? And if you do it alone, you are not obligated to talk to others. You have to go inward. So that's a shock to the system.
Okay. Yeah. For me, the shock to my system is I always try to learn new things. And for me, learning Japanese, like learning a foreign language, to me is an effort for me to deliberately shock my system because it's like language is one of those things we are born with and we are acculturated and conditioned with since young.
Yeah.
And when you're learning a totally new language with totally new like linguistic rules, like sentence structure, more than just pronunciation and writing the words, it's really a shock to the system. And so something that I really do on a conscious basis to kind of like keep myself deliberately off balance in a good way.
Yeah, because you're building new neural pathways by doing that, right? And that's how we keep our brain young.
my God, I think I can totally geek out with you maybe, over these kind of things about learning technology and how our brains work and homeostasis.
Yeah.
Like, these are fascinating stuff, right? It's like
Yeah.
I would totally geek out with you. I
Yeah.
think, do we have another 2 more
So
hours?
we're both nerds here.
Do we have another 2 more hours? Talking about that, right? It's like I want to talk a little bit about. I want to segue nicely into this idea of Asians, right? I think we talk a little bit about Asians culture and what.
Yeah.
There's just certain ideas, and I don't know whether it's founded or not, that maybe Asians may, as we said, collectivist cultures. We are kind of acculturated to just, go with the flow, don't rock the boat.
Respect the hierarchy is another one.
Yeah.
Right?
But in the long run, right, is there some form of like a conflict avoidance? Does it create a sense of conflict avoidance among Asians?
I think it does. Like going back to my point, right? It's the country culture you grew up in, the societal culture, and then your parents as well, your upbringing. So, but I always like to say, okay, your parents did the best that they could. Blaming your parents has an expiration date.
Yeah.
When you are 21 years old, you can choose what to believe, right? You can shape your identity. So if you want to, you're happy with that identity, fine. But when you're an adult, you can actually change that. You can change who you are. So if you want to conform to that, that's one way of doing it. Another way is bucking the trend and being different from the rest. It's a choice that we all can make.
Yeah, because I think sometimes in my work with, I'm sure you have experienced this as well. In my work with some of my MNC clients, they often tell me to, they want to bring me in to teach, the Asian counterparts to like speak up. Right, they say that on meetings, whether it's face to face or on virtual meetings, typically when they turn to the Asian counterparts and say, hey, you have been quiet, you've been silent on this call, do you have any call questions or you have any comments, right?
Nothing.
And the Asians like, no comments, no questions, right? And so there's this perception, especially in an MNC setting, that the Asian counterparts tend to not speak up. So what do you think is the reason for us not speaking up, besides just the culture part? But how can we buck this trend?
Yeah. So, one is the culture part. And I think the other one is our own personality, ourselves. And also a lot of fears about, maybe if I speak up, some people will think this. Or maybe it's not a good idea after all. So I also have clients who think this. And then, I give them some techniques because actually participating in a meeting can come in different forms, right? So, for example, somebody gave an idea, then you can build on that idea. You can ask a question. You can suggest a different way of doing things. The participation has many different forms. It doesn't only need to be, I have this great idea, I want to tell you all about it. There's other forms of participating. So you can start with the simpler ones, and then as you gain more and more confidence, then you can graduate to the more complex ones where you will be debating with people, for example. And then also the other one is preparation. So if you know that this meeting is going to talk about this topic, then do your homework, already anticipate what kinds of inputs you can share, what kinds of questions you can ask, so that when you go there, you already feel confident. You have an arsenal of questions, thoughts, insights that you can share.
Like that, right? It's like instead of coming with the answers, come with the questions.
Yeah, because that's participation too, right? That's also making your voice heard.
I think a lot of us, right, we develop this false identity or this false idea that to participate well, right, is to have bombastic ideas and to be very extremely eloquent and very charismatic in the way we present ourselves. I think a lot of us grew up with that kind of, that diet of information and of what leadership should look like.
Yeah.
There are so many books about leadership,
Yeah.
on charismatic leadership, on how leaders should present like Barack Obama, speak like Steve Jobs. There's just so much content out there with regards to this, and so therefore a lot of us have this false idea that to be a great leader is to be able to be charismatic and hold our ground and be so bombastic with our ideas.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily the case, right?
Yeah.
I think we can participate. I like the idea that we can participate in different ways as well.
Because the one that you described, it's a very extroverted kind of leadership.
Yes.
Right? The bombastic and very communicative way. And it's also foisting just one look of leadership. But leadership has many different forms. You don't have to be, always noisy, loud. There is also quiet confidence, right? And you can be a leader that way. So it goes back to recognizing that people have different styles and accepting that leadership is not just one look or one way.
Thank you for that. So I want to talk a little bit about power in the workplace.
Okay.
And also dealing with difficult people. I actually personally, I've seen workshops with the title Working with Difficult People. I always chuckle when I see workshop titles like that, because I think that's very self-defeating, right?
Okay.
It's like if you can you imagine you go into a workshop saying dealing with difficult people, working with difficult people, but the very labeling of it, I mean, my issue with that is the labeling of that, right? It's like just a label of difficult people. You're already saying that people are difficult. I personally don't think that they are difficult people. They are just different people, different in their different styles, different in the worldviews, different in personality. It's about really having the empathy and really understanding each other rather than really like labeling them as difficult.
Yeah.
But let's talk about power in the workplace.
Yeah.
Right? How do you manage power dynamics in the workplace, especially when dealing with people who may over-index on trying to assert themselves?
You mean in the context of getting ahead in the workplace?
Yes.
Yeah, so when you enter a workplace, you need to read what's really there. And most of it is unsaid. So you need to see who is really holding the power here. And the classic debate, for example, is dotted line reporting versus solid line reporting. So that means you report to two bosses, right? And companies will define, the dotted line boss will do this. They are responsible for this in terms of your career. The solid line is this. That's just theoretically, but you will observe which boss really holds the power. You can tell in the way they decide things, in the way they interact, the way they manage issues. And then also it's about understanding who else can influence the people who hold power. So you need to see who are the other stakeholders who really influence this person. And then also, what is the power of this person over you? What do they control? So if you understand that, if you can read that, and then also you can learn from other people who have been there for a while. And if you get their trust, they're going to tell you what they observe too, right? So you start learning about that. And then you decide, okay, what does it take to be successful here? What do I need to do, right? Who needs to notice me? How do I talk about my achievements in a way that's true to who I am? Who needs to sponsor me? How do I find that sponsor? How do I make myself sponsorable? Because sponsors also take a risk, right? They don't just want to sponsor anybody. How do you become worthy of that sponsorship? And how do you find the right sponsor with influence? So if you can read those things, then you can forge a path in terms of how do I really become successful in this environment.
Since you talk about sponsor there, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to double click on that and find out more information.
Yeah.
So how do you become sponsorable?
How do you become sponsorable is, I would say, 4 things. First one, the point of entry is performance, right? If you're not doing your job well, you can't get promoted.
Simple. Yep.
Yeah, so So you need to perform well. And then also in thinking about that, because there's written things and unwritten things. So you need to also read what are those unwritten things about performance here. And then second one is image. Like, how do you show up? How do you communicate? What is your equity, your brand equity, your brand, what do you stand for? And when I say image, it's not just dressing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that's very basic.
Yeah.
You should dress properly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's not only that, right?
Yep.
It's how you relate to people. Do you know how you come across to people. And then the third one is character. And this is going back to the values again. We keep talking about values. Because people are looking at, hey, you said this is important to you, or you said you would do this, but then you're not really behaving in that way. So that means you're not authentic. There is no congruence between what you say and what you're doing. So that makes people distrust you, right? If you're not consistent.
Yep.
And then the last is exposure, because you can be all of these things, but how will people know if they don't know what you've contributed? So there has to be some way to talk about your achievements, to be exposed to certain people, and to be reliable, And I think these are some of the key things that makes you sponsorable. Because the sponsor is taking a risk with their reputation too, right? Because they are advocating for you. They will be opening doors for you. And of course, if you're successful, they're successful too.
Yep. How do you go about finding a suitable sponsor?
It goes with, sometimes in some companies, there's a formal system. Sometimes that works. But it's also the informal ways.
Yeah.
So it's the reaching out to the right people, networking, being in projects or high-profile activities which would get you noticed. Sometimes if you have a good boss, the boss will connect you with some people who can be your sponsor. It's all of these things. So I would say don't rely on the formal system only, because what I've seen is that sometimes there's a formal system, they match you, but there's no chemistry.
So what's the difference between a sponsor and a mentor? So can a sponsor also be a mentor?
Yes, it's possible. But basically, the sponsor is a person of influence who can help you get to your destination role. Or they can be the decision maker, or they have influence on the decision maker. So they're opening doors, they're recommending you, and their word has weight.
Yeah.
So that's a sponsor. The mentor is a person who has experiences that they want to share with you, and then you get lessons out of that you can apply in your own journey. But can they open doors for you like a sponsor? Sometimes they do, so they can both be the same person, but sometimes they don't. Because a mentor can be even someone outside of your company, right? And they don't have power over the decisions that need to be done in terms of promotion. Just like what I said, right? Perform, fix your image, your make sure you have strong character, get exposed, and then help other people. Because even if you're not a top woman leader, let's say you're a senior manager, your middle management, you can help the people below, right? And for me personally, I really love doing that. I've helped so many women, inside the company and outside. I've helped some of them find new jobs, and that's the satisfaction to me, to see that they're succeeding, they're thriving. That's the legacy that I feel happy about. It's not like those fancy HR systems, fixing the foundation. Yeah, I did that too, but I think the satisfaction is in being part of someone's journey and then seeing them succeed. Like some of them are like the same level as me now, or even more, right? That's the ultimate reward.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you have been working in HR for so long, right? And I think
Yes, very
previously
long.
we also we also talk a lot about the changing face of talent,
Yeah.
and so I'd like to get your perspective about what are the top 3 non-technical traits you look for when hiring a talent.
I think one is learning. I like people are naturally curious, who like to learn new things because our world is changing so fast, right? In fact, I told my children, whatever you learn in university, it's obsolete by the time you graduate. That's why you need to keep learning, looking outside of the academe. So if someone has that trait, that means that they're naturally curious and they're smart in a different way and also very interesting, right? Because they're multifaceted. You can find people who like learning about their job. That's great. But if they can learn something outside of that, because sometimes we learn new things that can be linked to what we're doing. So that's one. Second one is positive mindset, because we can have so many challenges. Life throws so many things at us. And if a person has a attitude that, okay, this is here, but what can I do about it? How can I overcome this challenge? And keep that positive, that, hey, whatever life throws at me, I can turn it into a gift or opportunity. Even if it's a failure, maybe I can learn something from this. Maybe I can take it to make myself better.
And the third one?
Third one would be resilience. So are they, do they give up easily? Are they persistent? Can they handle adversity? So I think that's the other thing.
How do you actually measure resilience? Let's say in a job interview, right? How do I know whether a person is resilient or not?
Okay, so I would ask this person, tell me about the most challenging thing you ever encountered in your life. So it could be in your personal life or your career, and how did you go about handling that? That's what I would ask.
That's a behavior anchored
So it's
question.
behavioral. Actually, this is the PNG way of interviewing.
Oh,
It's behavioral, and then it's also looking at past behavior, because it's what you have done, right? And it may predict what you will do again in the future. And then it's also asking things unrelated to the job itself, because you're not trying to measure technical expertise in the interview, right? You're trying to measure different things. So it can be also questions outside of the job to check curiosity.
brilliant. So I'd like to talk about something you have been talking a lot about recently in social media, which is quitting. Quitting! Quitting strategically, right? Not just any quitting, but quitting strategically. Tell us more.
I was really surprised, because when I started writing that series, I wrote a few pieces quitting from the employee's standpoint, and then I also wrote a few pieces from the manager's standpoint. What you can do so you're not surprised when your people quit. And so many people resonated with that. I think it's really important, because if you think about it, society celebrates greeters. We always hear stories about, oh, this person didn't give up, like David Goggins, all of these people who are really gritty, they never give up. But we don't hear much about quitters. But there is a right time to quit. And even if you think about, for example, Mount Everest, there's 8 times more people who die going down the mountain versus going up. Because the real climb is not to climb this mountain. That's not the real climb. The real task here is climb and then go back alive, right? But we don't hear much about who were the people who turned back at the right moment, because there's a right time to turn back, right? If you don't reach the summit at a certain time, you cannot go back safely. So that means you have to give up your dream. You have been practicing for so long. You have to give up this dream and turn back. But we hardly hear about those people. So my point is, there is a time to quit. So be okay with that. It doesn't mean you're a loser, because that's the thing, right? Oh, you're quitting, you're weak, you're a loser. And sometimes people stay in the status quo and then they're trapped by sunk cost fallacy, because they think, oh my God, I've been here 15 years. I'm not going to throw that away. This is what I gave into this journey. So that's sunk cost fallacy. And then the other one is psychologically, when you choose to be in the status quo, you tend to do escalate your commitment, which means you're choosing the status quo, and then you put more resources into it because you get attached to that situation. So those are traps. So you need to be conscious of that.
Wow, so powerful, so powerful. So how can individuals plan for a successful transition so that they can really quit strategically and quit positively?
Yeah, because I don't believe in this thing. I think we talked about it too, right? Like, I'm so angry, I'm going to quit tomorrow. It's like just leaving without a plan, because in the end, this company will still succeed without you, right? You want to think of yourself. Are you able to live your values in this current situation? And then that plan B that you're thinking of, maybe it's a business, or maybe it's another company. Will you be able to live it there? Because if not, you're not going to be happy again, right? And then the second one is to do an audit of your job. What is it that you like? What don't you like? And for the stuff that you don't like, is there something that can be improved with that? And that forces you to see your situation objectively. Maybe you can ask help, maybe you can talk to your boss. Is it really not salvageable? And the third one is to think about what is the advantage and disadvantage of staying in the status quo and quitting, because both have pluses and minuses. And then fourth is financial, right? Because you still need to live. So you better have like at least 6 months savings to ensure that in case plan B doesn't work out, you can still take care of your needs. And then finally, this is very important. This is my bonus tip. My bonus tip is, once you have gone there to plan B, you should have plan C.
I like it.
Because
yes.
Remember, it's going back to homeostasis. You're going to get used to that. And then you're going to, after a while, sunk cost fallacy, escalation of commitment will come in. So if you have a plan C, that's the best career insurance you have. Is it having a gig, or side business? Or maybe just exploring, being in the radar of headhunters, being active on LinkedIn. That's the best career insurance that you can have, especially now where there's a lot of layoffs.
Yes.
So always think that, so that you always have options.
Bravo. Just a quick question, right? What are some of your best learnings from working in different companies and countries?
Yeah, so I've worked in 3 companies and then 5 countries. And the best learning I have is, you learn so much in these countries and companies. When you go to the next one, you cannot just copy paste.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes people say, oh, I was in P&G, I learned this, I learned that, I'm going to copy paste it here. No, because companies have nuances, right? Some things will not work. So it's part of having an open mind, having a growth mindset. Take those learnings, try them out, adjust them. And most of all, don't refer to the previous company. It's very annoying, right? When people do that. It's very annoying. And then the second one is the change process. Because I noticed when I was moving from one country to another, the first few weeks, you like it. It's like you're a tourist, right? It's the honeymoon. It's the honeymoon period. You're trying the food, you love your new house, it's all new. You like it. And then I noticed a pattern. After a few weeks, you suddenly hate it because you'll say, oh my God, nobody can understand me here. And then they don't do this. It's a different way. Then with moving so often, I realized that phase, it's your mind resisting change. Because the mind craves the familiar and the comfortable.
Yes.
So so later on I learned that okay, I'm in this phase. My mind is resisting it, but it will pass. It's not gonna last. So I just learned to go with the flow, and then later on try to see what is a positive thing about this place. I'm always asked, did you like Indonesia? I mean, it was one of the best experiences I had in my life, and I met so many people there who are still in touch with me. They became my friends up to now. So I always try to look at what is the positive thing that I can gain from this experience. Of course, no experience is perfect, right? There's always something negative. But I don't focus on that.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Okay, great. I think we're going to land this plane. We're coming to the end of the podcast. So we typically end the podcast with some quick fire questions.
Yes.
And quick fire questions are just questions you answer with
Sure.
a sentence or two.
Yep.
Question number 1. What is the most powerful question you have ever been asked before?
I think the most powerful question that I was asked is this still serving you?
Oh, great
Whatever
question.
situation you're in, is this still serving you? And then actually it has a partner question, which is,
Okay, the bonus.
if it's not serving you, what is the price of inaction?
What a great question to help people to challenge the status quo.
Yeah,
and
to shock, remember?
shock.
The system.
And to avoid homeostasis.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Who is a mentor or supporter who has made the biggest difference in your life?
My mom. I have a complicated relationship with my mom, like most women. But my mom, she was a career woman. She worked for the government. She was a department head. She still exercised every week. 2 times a week, she would go to aerobics class and drag me there. So she started me on that fitness journey. And then the second thing that she told me that I will never forget, she told me and my sister, we're only 2 girls. She said, never depend on a man for money. You have to earn your own money so that you can buy anything you want. You want to buy a new dress, you want to buy jewelry, you want to have this experience. You can do that and not have to ask for permission. So it really, I really saw that because it really shaped my view of what a working mother should be, because she has been working. She worked until she was 79 years old.
Wow.
Because she was in the government in the Philippines, and then my parents migrated to New York City. So they had like kind of a retirement job. She worked for the Metropolitan Museum of Art until she was 79.
Wow. In New York.
Yes, in New York.
Wow.
In New York.
Beautiful. What is one of the most courageous things you have done in your life that's made the biggest difference?
I would say going up to my boss when I was, how old was I? I think 27 years old. And then I told my boss, I want to be an expat. They had never sent any female person before in the Philippines, in HR, in PNG. So I said, I want to be an expat. I want that kind of life. And then I got so many excuses. So he said, no, we haven't sent anyone before. It's difficult because you have a partner, so we need to find him a job too. Anyway, I pushed. As I told you, it took 3 years to make it happen. So I went to Indonesia, and that really changed the trajectory of my life, because I thought I was going to stay there for 3 years and go back. But they never sent me back. So they kept moving me, and our life changed because I was able to give my children the kind of life that I would not have been able to give them if I stayed in the Philippines. And it changed my worldview, my mental models. It changed who I am as a person. and also challenged me as a working mom.
Wow, thank you, Rocky. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. It's been having you. I think we went way over time.
I know, as usual, right?
Sorry?
Every time we meet.
Yes. And you're just dropping so much.
Every time we meet, we're
yeah.
always
I mean, I just like to geek out with you with stuff like that,
Yeah.
homeostasis, and oh wow. I mean, it's been such a pleasure having
same
you.
here.
And thanks for coming, and thanks for your time
Yes, thank
on
you too.
the WholeHearted Leadership. And I am sure our guests will benefit tremendously from the insights,
Thank
from the truth bombs that you're dropping on this call. And I hope that you'll definitely inspire a lot of people.
I hope so. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share my journey.
Yeah. Where can our followers keep in touch with you?
Just my LinkedIn profile.
Okay, we'll put your LinkedIn profiles, and if you have any other websites, we'll be happy to put that in
Sure.
the show notes.
Thank you so much, Coen. I really enjoyed it, as usual.
I'm sure we have a lot more to talk about, and maybe there's another sequel. Who
Yes.
knows?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rocky.